guys, it's your girl Mandii B back at it again with another episode of Period Sis, brought to you by the official box owner. I am again joined by another woman today who is going to share her journey in infertility. And I mean, of course, you guys know we've talked a ton about periods, reproduction, and this is also one of those journeys that I think you guys will all be really drawn into, because I, for the first time, in hearing about yet another syndrome that I had absolutely no clue existed. And this is again why I love doing this podcast, because not only do I have women who are brave to share their journeys and what they're going through, but also the ability to educate other women who may also be experiencing this and feel as though they have no answers. So again, guys, it's another tale of womanhood for women by women. And guys, I want to thank you for joining me again. And today we are joined by Karla, who is going to be sharing her journey of infertility. Hi, Karla.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I have, like you said, like a story that's a bit atypical. And so I know I would have loved to have heard about this before my journey. So hoping this helps someone. But I'm gonna just start out and talk about like where everything started. So like a lot of people, you know, I sought out marriage and got married to someone, and I had, you know, all the conversations you're supposed to have in the beginning. What do you want? What do you want to do? How do you see this marriage? And everything aligned before getting married. Do you want to have children specifically? And I think, like, looking back on it, I think I had some red flags, but they said yes. And hey, what, you know, yes means yes. And
right,
so,
right, you would think it does, right?
I would think. But we got married. Like, we even had counseling where we discussed that, and we decided that a year after being married is when we would start planning, or is when we would start trying.
Okay.
Because we figure, you know, you knock out a year, we can get get our crap together and then start on children. But we never did. And like, what was crazy is we even started tracking my period together. And just never got down to it. Now, to be fair, he does suffer from, and this will be kind of relevant to what we talk about, and he has an autoimmune disorder. Called Crohn's disease, where basically that will affect your hormones. It's related to the thyroid, and it basically had hypothyroidism, which is like low production of hormone from the thyroid. So he kind of correlated it to that. So I think that put me in.
He correlated not wanting children to that, or correlated not even wanting to attempt to try. Like, do you think it had something to do with him feeling like, I don't want it on Front Street that I'm a failure and may not be able to produce children?
That part.
Okay.
And so, you know, that immediately turned on my sympathy mode. Like, oh, well, you know, I don't want to pressure you. We got time, you know, let me give you your space. But then a year passed. And then it was like, hey, let's revisit. And then, but the same thing. And at this point, they were on, you know, they were being medicated and their levels were normal. So then I'm like, all right, something's up. And so then I'm like, well, why don't you get like the test, like, you know, find out if you are eligible, you know, if you don't want to try, like maybe you want to make sure your health is clear, unresponsive. Anyway, it was a lot of deflecting. But eventually, without going to a physician, he said, basically, medically, I'm not able to. And that was a lie. And that's when I knew it was time to leave, because I knew at that point they are manipulating and kind of taking advantage of their medical situation to make me feel like they are just incapable, which wasn't true.
But it just may have just been, he was a man who just did not want children. Mm-hmm. Despite the fact that you guys had the conversation. Right, it's fine. You know, it's fine, but we kind of talked about it, and it was a yes a few years ago. So how long were you guys married?
I think a total of 5 years, but I left at year 4.
Okay, you left at year 4, and this was because of the children conversation and you really wanting to be a mom?
Yeah, because I think if he were open to children, like maybe even if not naturally, like he would be open to adoption. So I think it was just very clear that he just didn't want children, and he was never going to say it. And so at that point, I just had to I knew that was a goal of mine. And at that point, it was, if I stayed and didn't have kids, I would resent him and me, which wouldn't make for a healthy marriage anyway. So it was like, it was time to go.
Okay, so you choose to divorce your husband because you wanted to be a mom and you wanted to build a family. Can you talk about what dating was like post that, and if you really went into dating looking for a baby daddy?
So when I left, I was like dating. I was like, I don't even want to date. I was like, I want to hoe out and then in addition to that, find a parent. My Midwest is coming out. A person that would like to co-parent.
Okay.
And I didn't want marriage or any of that. I just wanted to just straight up. And I had an ex that was open to that at the time. Was like, cool, let's do it. But by the time I moved to the place where they were, they changed their mind. They felt like they wanted to go the more traditional route, which I can respect. Okay. I'd rather you say yes before the child is here, or say that you don't want to do it before I'm pregnant. So I actually met a guy. I'm gonna try to keep this short, but I had caught up with a guy. I used to teach at a college, and they had a graduation, and I saw him. He happened to be there because his brother was graduating. Okay. And I was like, oh, I'm moving back to such and such. And he said the same thing. And I was like, you want to get up when we get there? So we got up and we went out to eat and then was just talking afterwards. And we got into I was like, I don't know what your intentions are by meeting up, but just to let you know, I'm married. Like, I hadn't been divorced yet. And I was like, you may want to know that if you have any sort of link up intentions, but
right.
I'm trying to get a divorce.
I do want to ask you then. So while you're dating and also seeking a co-parent, you were intentional on letting the people know that you were dating, what your intentions were up front. At this point, you weren't looking for a relationship, but was this someone you were looking to talk the potential co-parent conversation with?
No, not even. Like, I wasn't even dating. Like, it was just like we went to college together, and it's like, let's just catch up. Okay. And we just happened to be getting in a conversation. But he was like, well, incidentally, like, I told him I left my marriage because I want to have kids. He was like, oh, incidentally, I want to have kids. And I haven't met anybody you want to have kids. Day one.
Wait, it was that simple? Can I also, real quick, I want to take a step back for the ladies listening. I mean, and you mentioned traditional way of having kids. Now, we know the stigmas that are attached to single mothers. However, you intentionally pretty much wanted to go into a situation in which you would not be with the father of your children, but you would just co-parent with them. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so he agreed to it outright as well.
He suggested it. Like, it wasn't even in my mind. Like, I was just telling him my story, and he was just like, he had just had a conversation the day before with his very close friend that he wanted to have children, and he was going to seek out having children. And so even when he asked me, I didn't think he was asking me. I thought he was like just saying, hey, chum, you're going to have a kid, and I'm going to go out there in this world and have a kid, and we're going to support each other. No, he's like, let's get to doing this thing. So okay, anyway.
Yes, go ahead.
So he hit me up, like, I think a week later, and he was like, so when would you like to start trying? I was like, huh. I said, that's when it clicked. It was like, oh, you together, you'd like to, oh, okay. Let's talk first. But anyway, so yeah, we had a bunch of conversations, made sure we were on the same page, right? Because I didn't want to do that again. And then we started trying, like maybe 3 weeks after that conversation.
Real quick, before we get into your family planning and your attempts at getting pregnant, what were the things that you and him discussed in order to be on the same page as co-parents? Like, what were the boundaries set? What were the conversations to make sure you guys both had the same, I guess, definition of what co-parenting looked like for the two of you?
So we both agreed that at first, because now we're in a relationship, but at first we were like, there are no feelings here. We are strictly doing co-parenting. What does parenthood look like to you, time-wise, support-wise, financial-wise? What is, does your family participate? What does your family look at? What are your family beliefs? What are your family beliefs in discipline? Do you feel like your relatives or friends have a hand in any of those things?
Okay.
Just everything. Where are you going to be? 5 years from now, just a lot.
Okay, wow. So how long before you guys start trying?
3 weeks.
Because it sounds like, I was about to say, girl, it sounded like it was pretty quickly.
It was right. It was very quickly.
So you guys go 3 weeks into trying to incept, and let's talk about what that journey was. Let's talk about then your first pregnancy with him.
So we were trying, and I think this is important too. So, and this was off and on because I would go out of town or he would go out of town. But this was off and on for about 10 months before I got pregnant. And I think that's because, and this is for the women out there, when you're tracking your period and you take the test for the HCG hormone or whatever to see that you're ovulating, for our age, it's probably a little too late.
What
to
is
try.
our age? Let's talk about age.
So, thank you. So I'm 41 and he's 40.
Okay.
And so the sperm move a little slower as you get older. But the egg only has 12 hours when it's like out and ready to be conceived. Yes, only 12 hours.
That's it?
Yes. So this is also good information if you're not trying to get pregnant too. So you have an ovulation window, and the idea is that that's the range. So sperm need time to get to that part of the uterus, right? And that takes time. So basically, if you try maybe a couple days before, then the sperm are present for when the egg does come out. That's the idea.
Okay.
So like I ovulate typically on day 14 or 15. That means I need to have sex. What ended up being suggested to me was to have sex on day 11 and day 13, so that by the time the egg comes, the sperm are already present.
Wait, sperm can live just that long?
Up to 5 days.
Okay. You teaching me something. I thought they just came right out, but I guess not. They just stay up in there swimming.
So here's the thing, because your body even stops a certain amount of sperm from getting in, because if there's too many, conception really is a miracle. There's so many conditions that have to be in place in order for it to happen. It has to implant right, so there's so many things. But yes, like up to 5 days, sperm would be swimming around up in there.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you learned all of this regarding your ovulation at what they call the geriatric phase of a woman, which is, ladies, this is what's crazy. And we talk about the biological clock a lot on this show as well, specifically as it pertains to conceiving as well as menopause and just your cycle altogether. And yes, we know that right after, I believe it's 35, correct? Once you reach 35, you're considered geriatric in terms of, and look, it's crazy. Because, we think of geriatric as like the old folks' home. No, when you are 35 years old, women, you are considered geriatric in terms of reproduction and pregnancy. So, Karla, you figured all of this information out. However, you did get pregnant.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Okay, so after 10 months of trying, for anybody that's trying, if you go, because what you're told as a kid is like, if you have sex without a condom, you're definitely getting pregnant. Yes. So you think, it's been 8 months. What the hell is wrong with me? Nothing. It's just you missing your freaking egg. More than likely, it's different for everybody. But
of course,
I think likely most people are probably missing their egg. So anyway, so when you do get pregnant, oh my God, it's like, I'm healthy, I'm normal, like, yay, it's happening, the joy, I can't wait to get fat, at least me. I don't know if, I'm sure people get scared a lot when they get pregnant too, but
but
I was excited, yeah.
So let's keep going.
Okay, so
yeah,
after we got pregnant, I like to say we because the father in this case is very much involved. But so everything seemed fine. Went to the doctor, made sure my hormone levels were fine, make sure like everything is up on the up. And then because I'm like you said, geriatric age, they want to like check in on you, make sure everything's okay. So I came back, I think, for a 4-week appointment, and I got like chromosomal testing and like a bunch of other stuff, and everything was normal. A little after that, maybe like 2 weeks after that, I noticed spotting. And then I asked the doctor, they was like, spotting is normal. But just keep watch, make sure that it doesn't get heavier. Some women can spot throughout their pregnancy and have a total normal pregnancy. So I was like, okay. But I noticed that it happened a lot when I exercised. Like I would exercise and that's when the bleeding would be a little heavier. So I was like, all right, this is concerning. So they was like, well, why don't you come in for, what's the scan? Sonogram? They was like, why don't we do a scan and then we'll see what's up. So I came in, and I think at that time it was fine. Everything showed up fine, but they said it's too early for a heartbeat. So they was like, come back in 2 weeks and we'll see if you have a heartbeat and just, observe. So I came back 2 weeks later. Before that, I think, the day before that appointment, I had really heavy bleeding, really heavy cramping. And immediately, I think they say you have like a bit of an intuition. Like I knew something was really wrong. And I even called, father and was like, hey, you need to come here. Something's up. And so we go to what's it called? The non-emergency, the cheaper emergency place?
Urgent care.
Urgent care. So I go to the urgent care. They're like, we can't help you. And I'm not going to the emergency room and paying them fees. So I went to the doctor. And they said, and they did another sonogram. And they were like, we don't have a heartbeat. It looks like you might be miscarrying. And I will say, like, beforehand I had... the pelvic floor. I could feel like a heaviness on my pelvic floor. So what I had seen before, like the baby was still implanted, but on that visit, everything like had just dropped it had detached and everything. I was basically about to pass everything.
Okay, so you experienced your first miscarriage, and what is the conversation like with your partner? And how were you feeling? Because this is something that almost seemed to be 5 to 6 years in the planning, since this was a conversation had with your previous husband as well. So how were you feeling, and what was the conversation to push forward into trying again?
I think people tell you, and it sounds condescending when people tell you, but it's really true. Like people will say, it's, don't think it's your fault. And you can like cognitively think like, yeah, I didn't do anything. It's just something about the body or the cells or whatever. But subconsciously you kind of feel like, what did I do? Like, how did I fuck this up? And I think that is a hard part to get through. And then otherwise, I think it was just like, I know a lot of women around me who even the ones with children had a miscarriage. So another part of me was kind of like, a little bit like, okay, well, this is unfortunately kind of normal. We just try again. And I think that was really it.
Okay, so you try again and get pregnant for the second time. Let's talk about what your second pregnancy was like.
So the second time, it's like I was trying to just to give you an idea of like timing. So the first time I got pregnant in September, and then I got pregnant again in February. So it wasn't that long after. Okay. Yeah, because now I got this game down. I know, day 11, day 13. And right. So I'm pregnant. And same thing, like I have joy, and I even gave him a card, like, happy conception, whoop-de-whoop, try to like get some of that joy, because it's very easy to like think negative.
Right, so especially like, after a miscarriage for the first time. So you experienced joy again. Let's talk about what that second pregnancy, what happened during that second term.
So I tried to learn from the first, I was like, well, maybe it's something with this exercising, because I noticed heavier bleeding. So I kind of changed up my exercise routine and started doing yoga instead of doing like heavy cardio, just drinking a crap ton of water, try to be as healthy as I can be with my diet, just doing all the things. And I had someone suggest that, potentially check your progesterone levels. So I got that tested. So the doctor put me on progesterone he said it wasn't horrible, but he was like, it could be higher. So, and if you take it, it doesn't hurt. So why not? Okay. And so I came in for a follow-up because they just wanted to be really observant. And they were like, let's see if we can get a heartbeat. And so I came in, and I had this really awful technician who was just like, first of all, she had my dates wrong. So she thought I was 13 weeks when I was actually 8 weeks. And so she was just saying, this is really small for 13 weeks. I was like, well, I'm 8 weeks. So then she was like, she scanned around real quick. And then she was like, sorry, we don't have a heartbeat, and just walked out the door.
So please tell me you called just for another nurse, another doctor, you did another follow-up, because at 8 weeks there definitely should be a heartbeat. And so what happened during that visit? You just did you feel defeated? Did you know it was another miscarriage? Did you ask for another professional opinion? Before you left, what did you do?
So I went to, luckily that it was just a technician, and then right after you talked to the doctor. And this is the doctor that kind of suggested she was the one that mentioned the APS, and she was really good. And she like was the opposite of the technician. Like, she was very sympathetic, was like, take your time, whatever questions you have, please ask me. Let me offer you this scientific information. Let me offer you this.
And this is where I'm about to ask you the questions next. So this is the doctor. For those of you listening, I mentioned the term APS. You said this is the doctor that suggested that this may be the issue. And so let's get into that. Because by your second miscarriage, which, mind you, there's women that go through many miscarriages before diagnosed with anything. So you're 8 weeks into your second pregnancy. There is no heartbeat, and you've just been given the news that you're experiencing a miscarriage for the second time. The doctor comes in and mentions APS. Can we talk about what that is and what information she gave you regarding that?
Yes, absolutely. And I don't even think she mentioned the name, but she said there's a rare disorder that basically creates blood clots in your placenta when you're pregnant. And the long name is antiphospholipid antibody syndrome. And so she didn't go into too much, but I'll explain what that is. So on your cells, there is an outside layer that has phospholipids. And basically, my immune system is on high drive. Like, I'm in constant fight or flight, basically, for those who are familiar with that term. And so my body is attacking healthy cells, specifically when I'm pregnant. So basically sees like the placenta, the cells in the placenta, as something that's attacking my body. So it's attacking that.
Okay. So how did you receive this diagnosis? Was there blood work? Did she see the blood clots? Was this something that after the first miscarriage she had ran tests? Like, how did you get to this diagnosis by her?
Okay, so that's a great question. So before then, it's just a suspicion.
Okay.
She doesn't know. So they do a bunch of tests, and they check, like, they scan the inside of the uterus, make sure that there's no scarring. I should also mention that when my miscarriages, I didn't do a DNC. I just did a natural miscarriage.
Okay.
And so she basically checked the organs, checked my chromosomal levels. And then checked for this, and everything that she checked my thyroid as well. So everything else was fine. Okay. And this came up positive. So the only thing about this is you can't test positive once. You have to test twice, because these levels could go up if there's an infection in your body. So you have to wait 3 months. And typically, so this is what makes this doctor special. It's basically a requirement that you have to have 3 consecutive miscarriages before they are supposed to test for this. So she went ahead and kind of pushed it a little early. As a matter of fact, they say you can't even get a clear diagnosis, unless you have one of the two, either 2 positive tests or 3 consecutive miscarriages and positive tests. So I'm really fortunate.
Wow. And I want to get a little deeper into your journey. You did try again for the 3rd time with pregnancy as well. And what was the outcome of that?
So we never stopped trying, and got pregnant again. This time, what doctors have said is that it's likely a chromosomal issue, because this was really early. I was maybe 11 or 12 days late on my period, and then it was kind of like a normal period. So they said usually when it's early like that, and they say it's still possible it could have been related to it, because it can start as early as implantation period, which is before you even get a positive pregnancy test. So that's what that was like.
Oh, so you got this diagnosis, you want a family. What are the conversations like, or are there conversations right now regarding other options in terms of building a family? Have you gotten there? And also with the diagnosis of APS, did your doctor say that you will never be able to conceive? What are those conversations looking like long term?
So the doctors are really positive. Like, I have a lot of friends where they'll like suggest other alternatives like right off the bat, but none of my doctors have done that. They say you seem to be able to get pregnant naturally, so just keep doing that. They said that the issue is, and I've had two opinions, but they say I either need to get on, not either because they agree, on a baby aspirin and what they call Lovenox.
Okay.
Lovenox is similar to like a warfarin or a Xarelto. It's a blood thinner, but you have to basically take self-induced shots every day for the entire term of the pregnancy.
I actually used to have to take blood thinners when I got done with my gastric surgery. So they're actually so the shots are not bad. They tell you to put it into like a fatty area. So normally either you pinch your stomach and put the shot there. I assume they wouldn't want you to do that if you're pregnant. So one of the other places would be your thighs, because there's a lot of meat in your thighs. However, you do bruise with poking yourself, but it's really not painful. And you know, I'm glad that there's a solution, and I'm also glad that they haven't been as harsh on you as I've discussed, even speaking with women with PCOS and other things, where they pretty much just tell them, hope you don't want kids because you can't have them. So I love to hear that you have had a positive experience with your primary physician or specialty doctor. I do want to ask then, in terms of fertility, have you been to fertility clinics, and what have those conversations look like?
Great question. So my OBGYN is who suggested that I go to a preconception doctor. And she is the one that mentioned the aspirin and the Lovenox, and specifically Lovenox, kind of to your point about not injecting it into the site. Lovenox specifically because it doesn't pass through the placenta. Warfarin and Xarelto, and that's important because a lot of doctors are still prescribing warfarin for patients with APS who get pregnant, and maybe don't know that it breaks through the placenta and affects the baby.
Oh, wow. Okay. Good to know. I guess my last question, one of the things that you included in your email is the fact that you're someone that you're very close to has experienced 10 miscarriages. And have they been diagnosed? Is this a conversation that you've had with her as well? And what are those conversations like with other women and who have also experienced miscarriages?
So, yeah, and I think that's important because we don't talk about this stuff. And this is my cousin. I had no idea that she was even going through this. This was a while ago, actually. And I just found out it was 11 miscarriages. But, just because I wanted to make sure that I was right when I was talking about this. So hers is very similar, but it's slightly different. She has what's called prothrombin mutation or G factor. And basically, she also gets blood clots, and the treatment would be the same, too. She would just be on aspirin or some sort of blood thinning injection. But she found that out. Like, nobody thought to check for these particular things until she was on, miscarriage 11. And, not that they weren't screening, but they were screening for other things. I think there's a lot of doctors that have biases. Like, even doctors mentioned to me even beforehand, like diabetes always comes up when I talk to like OBGYNs about conceiving, whether it's black doctors or white doctors. I know there's a conversation around that too. But I've gotten these kind of stereotypical things from both. And so, I think just simple screening for a lot of different, a variety of things would be helpful, but also people just knowing these things exist, I think would be helpful.
I think that's helpful. Before we get out of here, I would love for anyone listening who has experienced miscarriage to one time or to the 3rd degree or the 5th degree or the 10th degree, what would be your suggestion for maybe what they ask their doctor the next time they go in? If, again, maybe they haven't received a diagnosis or an answer, what thing would you push them to get tested or talk with their doctors about?
So just for everybody, and this is just health-wise, I think of your health as a collaboration. Just like seek out information for yourself. You know, the doctor knows what they know, but they're also specialists. And so sometimes they have a bit of a narrow view, but the entire body is a system and different things affect different things. And so I would just say, just do a lot of research, talk to as many people as possible, try to be in the best health that you can. And that's just doing things that we all know, like drink a lot of water, leafy green vegetables, you know, just the ordinary stuff. And just, if your doctor's ego is bigger than your health, find another doctor. No doctor should feel threatened by you asking questions. And if you get that, that means you're dealing with the wrong person. And that's important.
Oh, that was very important. Karla, thank you so much for sharing your story, being vulnerable and brave. And I really hope that your journey and your story really touches someone listening to go get the answers that maybe they need as well. So I really appreciate you joining. And do you want to share any social handles or maybe anything if anyone wants to reach out and ask you any questions? Or
No, I'm hiding out.
Okay. That is so fine. That is so fine. Well, Karla, thank you for coming on the show. And guys, as you know, stay tuned for some stats and facts. I'm going to drop some stats regarding miscarriages and APS, which was brought to my knowledge during this episode. And Karla, again, thank you so much for reaching out and being brave to share your story.
Thank you so much.